Alrighty, so today we are going to do a video looking at the most surprising and disappointing team in MLS so far in the 2025 season, because I think now we got a good amount of sample size to see how the season is, and there's no doubt that there are definitely teams that I definitely did not expect them to do so well this season, did exactly that, and then obviously we have the disappointment teams that I thought that they were going to do well. I'm pretty sure fans thought that they were going to do well, and even experts thought that they were going to do well, and they have massively under achieved in the beginning of the season. So let us begin by first talking about the disappointment part, because let's get the bad news out of the way in terms of looking at five of the most disappointing team. And I didn't write it on there, but I of course will have some honorable mention and also some dishonorable mention when we get to talk about the disappointment part. And also, this is not a ranking; I'm just pretty much listed in terms of teams where they are between 1 through 5. But if this is based on a rankings, I would say this team would be number one in terms of the most disappointing team right now, and that is no doubt Atlanta United. And again, it's hard to believe that this is the same problem that they had compared to last season, where all the hype surround the attack, and especially the amount that they spent this off season, and with the $50 million that they spent on the attacking end. It's hard to believe that this was supposed to be a team that should be a juggernaut. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure some of the more hardcore Atlanta fans, or maybe some of the more smarter Atlanta fans, kind of saw the warning sign that despite the fact that they spent a lot of money on the attacking end, there was definitely a lot of question when it comes to the defense. And we saw last season the defense wasn't really that good, and they didn't really make too much change of that. What I definitely did not expect is the fact that the defense somehow got worse this season, and it turns out Brad Guzan, his power of saving this team over and over again only works when he faced against Inter Miami. But yeah, the defense has just been completely regressing. And then on the attack again, I mean, again, this season I mentioned about Emmanuel Lath being kind of like the only guy that is scoring the goal for this team, and recently he has hit a bit of a dry spell. The return of Miguel Almiron has been kind of underwhelming. Yes, he has had some good moments for this Atlanta team, but he just does not look like the Miguel Almiron that we saw doing his first tenure with this team. And then there's even more disappointment when it comes to Marunchuk, which again another guy that you were hoping last season it was just a bit in the radar that him arriving to a new team maybe in and eventually figure things out, and he still have not really kind of figured out with this team. And as a result of all that, I mean, you just kind of add to the pieces of being one of the most disappointing team. And Ronnie Delia, again, he clearly still have not figured it out in terms of how to put a really talented team together, and kind of guide that team to success. I mean, obviously, so we kind of saw this a little bit even doing the MLS Cup run that NYCFC had. Remember, during that year when NYCFC win MLS Cup, there were NYCFC fans that was calling Verani Daly ahead in the middle of summer, and eventually he of course figured things out. So you're assuming maybe that's going to be the same case where he's just trying to figure out, especially of how top heavy this team is on the attacking end. But there's no doubt that this has been a woeful start for this Atlanta team. Massively underachieved what they should be. This should be a MLS Cup contender, or at the very least, a team that should be near the top four, or in the conversation of being a contender in the Eastern Conference. Not where they are right now, which is near the bottom of the Eastern Conference, the team that simply cannot keep the goal out of their net. And on the attacking end, all that money they spent on the attack, and pretty much almost every single player on that attack has not produced, or all the signings that they made, at least part of that $50 million investment, has kind of blow up in their face in a big way. Now at number two, I'm gonna say St. Louis as one of the biggest disappointment. And again, part of that is because of what we saw last season. And I think this is again another prime example of why just because a team had a great second half of the season, it doesn't always translate into the very next season, because things can definitely happen when it comes to other team around could get much better. But also, it's due to the fact that with them making the big decision of decide not to keep John Hackworth for another season, not decide to promote him to be a permanent head coach, and decided to get a relatively unknown known kind of quality in Olaf Melberg in this team. And yeah, it's safe to say that it has not worked out whatsoever. Now, part of that is because they have also battling through some injuries. Some of these key player on this team like Teuscher and Leuven has missed their time. Heck, even their main goalkeeper Roman Berkey has been missing time. He hasn't started a game I think ever since when St. Louis and pretty much every single team play during the international break. So I actually have no idea why exactly Roman Burke is silent for a bit. But I don't think that's the issue. I think Ben Lund has been a great backup. In fact, I would say he's probably the best backup right now in the league. And I wouldn't be surprised once Roman Burke does get the #1 start, that maybe some teams that desperately need goalkeepers are looking to call for St. Louis and see if they can get Ben Lund and maybe him being a starter somewhere else. The problem with this team obviously is on the attacking end, and again, the attack part of that is because of injuries. But I think most part of it, and I think St. Louis fan can have noticed this, is the tactics that Olaf Melbourne team sets up. It just does not work with this team, especially of how I'm pretty sure St. Louis fans are very frustrated with how defensive this team have set up. Yes, they are one of the best defensive team in the league, but a big part of that is because they designed to be a little bit more defensive. And sometimes when so defensive, especially what Elf Melbourne team has set up, and this is a kind of also the thing that I think some previous club that managed by Olaf Melbourne kind of warned St. Louis fan about how his team tends to be a little bit more defensive and kind of boring to watch, and that's kind of what you get with the St. Louis side. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if they can get out of the cycle, and especially I think the pressure maybe started to be on Olaf for as well, especially if this attack continue to stutter the way it is, and especially the tactics that's being used. St. Louis fans are not going to be happy about this, and there might even be more pressure on the GM as well. Looks, he's done a great job in terms of building this team in this first season, but most of his signings has been kind of a bit of a dud ever since that, or some of the signings have kind of suffered from some second season syndrome, as what we've seen with Toysher and Hardo. Those guys haven't really produced the way that they should be, and even Simon Betcher as well. Kind of things have not gone well for in this season. So yeah, massive disappointment of how St. Louis City has had so far this season. Now, at number three, we're saying New England, and this might be harsh to say that it's been a disappointment, considering that we kind of knew that this team was going to struggle coming out of the game with all the changes that they made. Again, they're kind of almost like an expansion team, and in some way, I think that it may be a little bit harsh that I put them on this because it feels like Caleb Porter is starting to figure things out, and what a difference it make when you finally score an open play goal for this team. It's hard to believe that literally finally them breaking the shackle of not scoring an open play goal. That literally the next shot that they had, they put another open play goal. So there's definitely progress that this New England team have shown. And again, the one good thing about this New England team, they've been much better on the defensive end. It's just that they need to figure out the goal scoring part, which you would assume that with some of these new pieces that is selling, things would of course go well. But that being said, it is still a pretty disastrous start to the season for New England. And unless if they go on this crazy run that they could and maybe go for like 4 or 5 games without a defeat, maybe New England can finally start to get things going. But even with all the changes they made, again, I think if it wasn't for this incredible turnaround that they had in the last couple of games, I think Caleb Porter probably is no longer the head coach of this team. So we'll see whether or not if that kind of can continue. But I'm just kind of disappointed in New England, the fact that even with all the changes that they made, they just kind of almost like been stuck in mud, especially in the beginning of the season, and the attack has been frustrating to watch as well throughout the season. And at number four, you know what? I'm gonna break the rules. I usually only pick one team, and in fact, for 4 and 5, I might as well just put um the teams that is in LA and New York, because pretty much both of the LA team and New York team has been a massive disappointment this season. So starting with the LA Galaxy, we know how much of a disappointment it is, and yes, injuries have definitely played a big part to this team, and cap restraint definitely have played a big part of this team. But even then, I mean, to go the beginning of the season without winning 9 games, which is the longest an MLS team has to start season. And it's not like their schedule has been tough too. Well, maybe in the beginning, but lately the schedule has been much more easier, and yet they still haven't quite figured out. And also them getting some healthy bodies back into this team. I mean, the second piece of that killer piece is back with Painso, and yet they're still not scoring the goals and not producing anywhere close to where they are. And that also kind of just shows you how important they miss Ricky Puig, and how it might have been a bit of a mistake of them decided to get rid of Mark Delgado instead of maybe thinking about moving on for Marco Royce as well, because yeah, Marco Royce has spent more time on the IR than he's actually on the pitch, which just kind of sums up his career in general. LAFC, obviously, the disappointment for them is the fact that they simply cannot win a road game. Now, part of that is because of the fact that they have CONCACAF Champions Cup commitment, and maybe those numbers are kind of a little bit skew. But even then, with how good this team has, and especially we've seen before where even some of the best team in the league can cope with both competition, you would expect LAFC should still be much better, and especially with the way that this team is kind of once again a one trick pony, a team that simply, if you let them have the ball, they're going to have trouble in terms of breaking teams down. They just heavily rely on the counter attack, and it's no surprise that many teams have kind of figured things out. And also, not to mention the big disappointment so far for LAFC, Danny Bawanga has not got going whatsoever until just recently. These last 2 games, we started to see the old Danny Bawanga, though. Part of that is because they kind of been double team him a lot, but even then, he just haven't really quite showed that ability that he can, and even if he is double team, I think he still has the ability to able to get by defender, as we've seen in these last 2 games. He's definitely much feels like the shackle has started to especially after he scored that goal against the San Jose Earthquakes. And then of course the both of the New York team has been a big disappointment. I mean, for the New York Red Bulls, I mean, I want to say that they probably might not deserve to be on this list, but at the same time, no, we knew that this season it was going to be a disappointment in terms of them not going to have what they have in that MLS Cup run. Like what they did in that MLS Cup run to the final, that was pretty impressive. But you just kind of had a sense that they're going to show through a bit of a regression. But even with the regression, I didn't think it was going to hit them that hard. Especially the attack that they have heading into this season. We kind of had some concern when it comes to this attack with the way that with Chupo Moting, he's a guy that maybe you get 25 games throughout the season because he's on the older side. Emil Forsberg has had trouble in terms of staying healthy, and when you have and even Lewis Morgan, who has really been kind of invincible so far, I think he's been injured with this team. Again, it's just kind of shows you that there was that concern that maybe this is not going to work out, and lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. All three of those front three have struggled so far for the Red Bulls, and the defense can only do so much if you can't score a lot of goals. And not to mention, just like LAFC, the Red Bulls have their problem in terms of scoring on the road. And then of course NYCFC, the big disappointment with this team is all those young talent that they have not developed and bring up to the next level. I mean, that was the big question heading into this season for this NYCFC side. We know the great young talent that they have on the team, but can they take the next step? That we kind of had a feeling that it could happen last season, and boy, they definitely did not take the next step. All of these guys have not really been taking the next step to really get this team to be a competitive team, and especially you could say that some of these guys have kind of regressed as well compared to what we saw last season, and also just like their counterpart, the New York Red Bulls, they simply cannot win on the road. This has been a problem for them the last couple of seasons, and it's once again a problem again this year, and a lot of people are saying that, well, NYCFC is once again living up to that merchant of being playing at a baseball field and gets that advantage of playing on a tiny field, because when they do play on a real field, yeah, you can see how rough things have gone for that NYCFC team. And now let's talk about some surprising team. And before we talk about that, some dishonorable mention. I'll say Real Salt Lake is one of those one. Though again, it's kind of harsh to put them there because we knew that they were going to show a bit of a regression after selling a lot of pieces and not really adding of pieces, and especially that number 9 position is still a big question with this team. I mean, Diego Luna can do so much for the attack if no one really can kind of take the weight off of him. Montreal, I think is the same boat of RSL. They got rid of a lot of pieces. We knew that they were going to go for a regression, but even then, I didn't think what Laurent Courtois needs to do in terms of the play of this team just didn't really quite worked out. Now, part of that wasn't really kind of his fault because when the ownership are not giving the tool that he is, it's no wonder why he kind of set up to fail. But he also kind of didn't help himself with the way that Montreal fans have kind of been frustrated with the fact that Laurent Courtois has kind of got most of the tactics wrong in terms of trying players from different position that they're not comfortable with, and also just changing the lineup way too much, tinkering way too much. That kind of is the reason why the team kind of stopped really playing for him in the beginning of the season. And then of course, Sporting KC, the dishonorable mention, mainly because yeah, with another rough start of the season. I mean, at least Sporting KC fans have kind of got their mini MLS Cup win by finally seeing Peter Vermes no longer as their head coach. But as I said, I think there are a bigger issue than Peter Vermes being the head coach of the team. I think there's issue deeper than that. Getting rid of Peter Vermes, I don't think is going to solve every single problem that Sporting KC had. We can clearly see in that game against the Quakes, even when they scored 5 goals in that one, that defense is still absolutely Swiss cheese, and that's the bet that can't be fixed. It doesn't matter how good the attack is, which that attack is started to show its worth, at least in the last couple of games. Now, looking at the surprise list, and at number 1, and again, if this was a ranking, I would say the Vancouver Whitecaps is definitely number 1. Again, has been a huge surprise. Nobody saw this coming. Even the most optimist Whitecaps fan would not expect this team to be at the top of the Western Conference, and I believe still at the top of the Supporter Shield standings as well. And not even the most optimistic Whitecaps fan would not believe the fact that they're now going to be in a CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal duel against Inter Miami. And like I said, I do feel like this is a team of destiny with the way that they took down those Mexican team down in Liga MX, and despite all the adversity that they faced and that able to pull through, you just kind of had a sense that this team is not only special but maybe a team of destiny, maybe able to crush Inter Miami, who haven't really been playing at their best in these last couple of weeks. But what's even more impressive about what the Whitecaps is doing is not only the fact that Jasper Sorensen has got the best out of this team, despite the fact that this team doesn't really have a lot of depth, but a lot of unknown pieces that have really stepped up as well. Emmanuel Sabi is a big example of it, a guy that you probably have not heard about in the beginning of the season, and he is definitely he showed up. We even saw Jay in Nelson in the beginning of the season. He has kind of cooled off a little bit, but in the beginning of the season, what an impact that he has. And then let's also not forget about Brian White, who is single-handedly carrying this team on his back right now. I mean, I would imagine if this team still had Ryan Gall right now, that this team would even be better than what they are. So once they do potentially get Ryan Gall, and there's no updates of when he's going to be back, with the way that he suffered that injury, it's definitely doesn't seem like we're going to see him in a Whitecaps jersey anytime soon. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, with all the injuries that the Whitecaps have dealt, this team has just been an absolute wagon, and part of that is just kind of the power of friendship and the and what good coaching can do. Because as I said at the beginning of the season, Jasper Sorensen, he is definitely an early candidate to win the coach of the year. If this continue, he's got to win the coach of the year. I mean, there's no doubt that the job that he's doing with the Whitecaps is something nothing short of not just a miracle, but also just something we usually never see. A head coach can get the best out of a team that on paper should not be as good and as talented as they are. And some might also say they might be punching above the weight, which I think they are. But what an incredible start it's been for the Whitecaps, who, mind you, this is also a team that still have an uncertain future with the way that the ownership are still looking to try to sell the team right now. Now at number 2, let's say Charlotte. And the thing that I'm surprised about Charlotte isn't because of the fact that I'm surprised that they are one of the best team in the league, but I'm kind of surprised the fact that not only once again the defense has been good, but now it feels like the attack has started to get going. Now there are definitely signs that the attack was kind of getting going. I mean, we kind of had a sense that Pep Biel was going to get things going, and he's definitely a big part of that. Wilfred Zaha hasn't really kind of hit the height that Shore fans hope that he is, but he's still serviceable as well. And the same goes for Patrick Archiman, and even Tokamati has done really well. They just have enough when it comes to the attacking pieces, which is kind of something that I said about the Shard team. If they can just figure out the attack, this team is going to be one of the best team in the league. Guess what happened? They figured out on the attack. The defense is solid. And ever Dean Smith might be another their head coach that could be in running for a coach of the year alongside with Jasper Sorensen with the job that he's done ever since arriving to Charlotte. So yeah, there's no doubt that I would say it's a surprise mainly because of they're definitely better than what I anticipated. But maybe I wouldn't say again, this might be another one where I'm kind of nitpicking a little bit the fact that I think nobody is surprised the fact that once Charlotte figured out the attack, this team is now becoming a force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. And then at number three, let's say the Philadelphia Union. Now, obviously, the Union, they have definitely dropped off a little bit, but the win against Atlanta United, that's definitely got them back into a pretty good position. And maybe part of the reason why they got off to such a hot start is because of the new coach boost. I mean, of all the teams that, of course, try to get the new head coach boost, the Union definitely got the best out of it. I mean, that new head coach boost was definitely infectious in terms of the way that front three was an absolute monster, and that it felt like the Union were returning back the clock to what we seen in the Jim Curtin day of just being an absolute buzzsaw. Now, obviously, things have definitely calmed down a little bit. That front three, hasn't been that good, and not to mention one of the most important pieces of that front three, Daniel Gazdag, doesn't even play for the team anymore, and Ty Baribo kind of have really cooled off in terms of the goal scoring uh, streak that he had in the beginning of the season until this recent past week when he finally broke that little mini goal drought. Well, there's no doubt that this Union team, with the way that they were supposed to be going through a rebuild and just kind of going through a transitional period, and I have a feeling they're still kind of doing that with the sell off pieces that they had in dismantling the core. The fact that Bradley Carnell is still able to steer this team to be a contender. I mean, if they are going to make it to the playoffs, even if it's not like in the top four spot, this is going to be considered a success for the Union because again, this is supposed to be a transition year. This team should not be good heading into this year, but what Bradley Carnell has done in a short time here has really gathered the belief that maybe the Union window might not be slammed shut whatsoever. And I also have been very impressed with some of their new signing as well. Lukic is definitely a guy that I've been very impressive. A guy that I definitely didn't think he was going to do well. I have his doubt. I was doubting that he was going to be an MLS quality player, and he's definitely shown that in the beginning of the season. Now, obviously, if he can just keep his composure a little bit and not did what he did in the last game, getting sent off because of kicking the or not kicking the ball away, but delaying the restart when you're obviously on a yellow card. You don't want to do that. Then we go to number four. It's gonna be Austin. So yeah, Austin has been a big surprise. I think the surprising factor for Austin is the fact that I definitely did not expect that Nico Estevez has really turned that defense into a rock solid team overnight. I mean, everybody was expecting Austin to be a really good goal scoring team, especially with the weapons that they have. But really, you gotta say in terms of the goal scoring threat and in terms of the signings that they have signed to improve the attack, none of them really kind of have done well, and you could say they kind of been more below in the disappointment category. I mean, Brandon Vasquez, even though he did score this previous week, he's just still have a tough time in terms of trying to get the lid out of the goal. Uzuni has not live up to the hype so far, but maybe that's because he's still trying to figure out life in MLS so far, and there's still a lot of question in terms of that they don't really have a legitimate playmaker on this team because bringing Uzuni and Vasquez, two of those big signings, they're not playmakers on this team. They're more the goal scorer of this team. And even though they said that maybe Danny Pereira was going to be that guy, I think I think that's too much on the shoulder of the youngster so far. But even despite the lack of goal scorer that they have a lot of 1-0 wins so far this season. It's the defense that has just been an absolute renaissance, and I think that's part of the style with the way that Nico Estevez, he has shown that he can definitely uh organize a very good defense. We saw it during the time with Dallas of how those Dallas team have always been considered to be some of the best defensive team in the league. Now, obviously, there is that question of whether that is sustainable, and that eventually they're gonna have to figure out how to get the attack going, because you can't always win 1-0 game every single game. It doesn't feel like that is sustainable, and especially we saw the big weakness of the fact that once that defense is going to be playing out are not at their best, especially against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Yeah, that can happen. But there's no doubt that, again, Nico Estevez has done an amazing job to really just turn the fortune of this team, in terms of the fact that I never thought that this would be a team that would be a good defensive team. Consider how bad that defense was in the last couple of seasons under Josh Wolf. And I think, if there's one thing that at least you want to be better, and at least maybe can keep yourself self to get wins and games, and at least get yourself high up in the standings, is that if you are able to have a good defense, and even though you have problem on the attacking end, we have seen where teams have a good defense will usually still be able to earn points, compared to what we see teams that have defensive issue but can have the scoring. Because I think the other thing that kind of play into Austin favor is the fact that we've seen this season goal scoring has definitely been down this year. I mean, besides this previous week where there was a lot of goals that's being scored, we haven't had a lot of goals that has been scored. It's been a season where the defense have definitely stepped up, and Austin is kind of taking a full advantage of that, being a very good defensive team and just have enough on the attack to get the points that they needed. And then at number 5, I mean, you knew this team was going to be here. You knew San Diego FC is going to be on this list. And even though, yes, these last couple of games they have kind of gone back down to earth a little bit, and especially the last game against Charlotte, that was arguably the worst game that San Diego have played. And big part is that they were down to 10 men for most of the game. But even when they were not down to 10 men, they still were miles apart of what Charlotte did in that game. And that, I think teams maybe are starting to figure out when they face against the San Diego side, where as long as you go quickly on the transition, and the fact that you're able to stay compact, and make sure you don't make many mistakes on the defensive end, there could be a good chance that you can get a win against the San Diego side. Again, when you're a team that likes to have possession, as San Diego is to do, you got to also still be careful the fact that you don't push too many men forward, and you're always going to be exposed in the counter attack. That's always been the weakness when it comes to playing a possession kind of style of play. And again, we're seeing it right now when they do face against good transitional teams. Charlotte is definitely one of the better transitional team in the league, that they're getting pretty exposed throughout. But despite that, what a start of life it has been for San Diego. And again, big part of this team is the fact that this possession style, at least for now, it has worked out really well. And they've also they don't legitimately have a goal scored on this team. When you look at all the goal scored that they have, it's been all over the place. So this is kind of one of those teams where it's a classic example of a team where the team is definitely the star of this team. The guys will always find a way to contribute in terms of the goal scoring department, no matter who it is, and that's kind of is the reason why it has really driven this attack. And then of course on the defensive end, besides the last couple of games, they have been absolute rock solid on the defensive end. CJ Dos Santos, I have a feeling, is starting to become the second coming of Brad Stuver. And the reason why I say that is I did make in the beginning of the season a comparison, the fact that I think he could have a similar kind of type of career that Brad Stuver has, a guy that kind of was playing second fiddle to a good team, and that is or to have a decent goalkeeper, decide to make a move to an expansion team, and it works out relatively well. I think that's going to be the same case for CJ Dos Santos, that has done really well. And also the back line, for the most part, has done really well, which, again, that was kind of my concern about this team. And yet, they definitely done a serviceable enough job throughout the season to get themselves the wins. But again, what a job Mikey Veras has done so far to this team. And now it's going to be interesting to see whether or not, if they can figure this slight issue where now teams have kind of started to figure things out, how to play against them. How will Mikey Veras, of course, adjust and not have the same fate as what we saw with St. Louis last season, where they got off to a great start to the season, but kind of tapered off and eventually would become a little bit mediocre as the season goes along. And then lastly, looking at honorable mention in terms of surprising team, I'll say Colorado is definitely a big surprise. I mean, Colorado is kind of a team where when they are playing well, because so far I've seen this Rapids team has been a little bit inconsistent. There's been times where they haven't been great, especially on the defensive end, but when they're playing well, this is definitely one of the better team in the Western Conference, especially on the attacking. And not a big surprise because we knew that this attack for the Rapids compared to what we saw last season was going to be a strength of this team. Chicago, obviously a big surprise factor. The fact that yes, even though the stats doesn't show it, I think Greg Berhalter has done a great job with this team. This is definitely a much more watchable Chicago team in previous season, and if they can once again just cut out those lapse of concentration, which is always tough to do when you're trying to find a winning culture in a team that for just a decade long has had this kind of mentality of making big sloppy mistake to cost them games. They can definitely be a team that finally end that long playoff drought. And then lastly, the honorable mention is the Nashville SC. Same thing I'll say about Nashville as I said about Colorado. When they're at their best, this is definitely a team that could be a force reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. But that's a big if because again, we've seen it over this weekend against Seattle when they're not at their best. Yikes! That was a pretty brutal Nashville team to see. But still, with the way that coming off of last season of the disappointment that they have, and especially with a new system that BJ Callahan is running, being more of a possession kind of team, I'm kind of surprised the fact that they're actually doing relatively well, despite the fact that this is a complete new system that they're running. When a new head coach come in and put in a complete new system that is completely the opposite of what is the identity for Nashville under Gary Smith for so long, it's never easy to try to make that changes. Even when you also have almost the similar players to this team compared to previous season. And I think Nashville, and especially for BJ Cowan, and he's done a great job in terms of that. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the most surprising and disappointing team so far this season. As always, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this video? And if you have any teams that you want to put in terms of the most disappointing and surprising team that I didn't mention here on the board, or even mention in the honorable and dishonorable mention list, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.